Much like last week, my sincerest gratitude to the student body for coming out and providing an unbelievable game day atmosphere, as well as our fans. That was as raucous and loud, packed as guys like John Bianco that have been here forever can remember. And it was fun, and it had a direct impact on the game. It really did, and I think it energized our team tremendously. So, again, thank you to our fans and students for their support, and hopefully we'll have much of the same this week. Good win, as we talked about on Saturday after the game. Played really well in all three phases of the game, especially in the second half. And defense, after giving up 2 out of their first 3 drives, scoring touchdowns, shut them out the rest of the way was really big. And it was fun, especially the 4th down stop on 4th and 1 when we had an opportunity to take the penalty and make it 3rd and 6 from the 6, or make it 4th and 1, knowing that they would go for it on 4th and 1, and we chose to make it 4th and 1, and our kids did not disappoint us. Our players did not disappoint us. So that being said, we moved on. That feels like ages ago, that game on Saturday. This is an extremely talented and good football team that's coming in here on Saturday. It's our conference opener. It's a team that, quite frankly, has had our program's number for the last few years. And, if we want to achieve the things that we want to achieve long-term, we've got to go 1-0 this week, and we've got to be able to put last week's game behind us, learn from the positives, learn from the mistakes, apply them, and then move on. And I feel like our guys, at least yesterday at practice, it was a late night, and then we were up at it again on Sunday, practicing, meeting, the whole 9, and our guys were dialed in and ready to move on. Injury updates. Brennan Eagles is probably doubtful right now with a hamstring issue. Keontae Ingram had a good day running straight ahead yesterday. He's, again, if we were in the NFL, probably questionable. We'll see. We'll know a lot more tomorrow when we practice. Zach Shackelford is probably doubtful, still having some pain, but I think he's going to try. What that means, I don't know yet, but he certainly, if we had to play today, could not play. And DeMarvion Overshawn is coming on, but is still probably a week or 2 away. And then the one that hurts is Malcolm Roach. Fractured his foot, so he'll be out 6 to 8 weeks with surgery scheduled on Wednesday. So we'll have to plug in not only and make up for his production and play on the field, but his leadership as well. So, but that's what we train for. One of our pillars of our program is competitive focus, meaning when your number is called, that you're ready. And I'm sure that those guys that are behind him will be. Questions?
Tom, you walk off while TCU and Ohio State are walking out, and I know it's always on to that next one. When you see a TCU offense put up 500 yards on that defense, is it really easy to move on to the next one?
No, considering what I know about how talented and good Ohio State's defense is too. So we've got our work cut out for us on both sides of the football. TCU has speed everywhere. Their skill guys on offense are fast in terms of their wide receivers and running backs. That running back was a 94-yard touchdown run or something like that against Ohio State, who has got a lot of speed on defense themselves. And then obviously on defense, even their front is fast and athletic. So they played well. They came up a bit short, but this is as fast of a defense as I've seen in a long time.
Hey, Coach. You talked a little bit about this goal line stand. We really thought that was a game-changing situation for you on Saturday night because it kept your momentum going. You talk about momentum being a fleeting thing, I know, but it did keep momentum going. And secondly, can you talk about Jeffrey McCullough's role now that that Malcolm's going to be out, how important he's going to be for your team, and just how smart of a player McCullough is as a whole?
The first part of your question, yeah, that provided a ton of energy. I think it provided energy. It wasn't your normal 4th and 1, right? I mean, we could have certainly backed them up to 3rd and 6. Stopped them, and they jogged their field goal unit out and probably would have had 3 points. But we knew if we chose for it to be 4th and goal at the 1, that there was a high likelihood that they would go for it at that point. And so I think there was a lot of trust placed by us into Coach Orlando and his staff, and then by Coach Orlando and his staff and his players to say, Coach, let me have a crack at this. Let us have a crack at this. And so we went with it, and it did provide us a tremendous amount of energy, and for all intents and purposes kept points off the board. Not just 7 points, but in reality, had we decided something differently, probably would have been 3 points given the percentages. And then, Jeff's as smart a guy as we got on the football team. I mean, really, really sharp guy that is coming into his own from a physical standpoint, is really embraced the physicality that's necessary at that position. But he's a guy that is going to be in the right place at the right time just because of how smart he is.
Yeah, Tom, how well do you know Gary Patterson? And as an offensive coach by trade, what challenges do his defenses present when you're game scheming?
I know him about as well as most of the head coaches in the Big 12, maybe a little bit more just because of, Craig Niver used to coach for him, David Bailiff, who I worked for, used to coach for him, so there was always a bit of a connection there throughout the years. But his defenses do a really good job of mixing zone with man, mixing fronts, mixing blitzes in kind of at the right time, and he's going to scout you, till his eyeballs come out. I mean, he's going to know, when the back is 6 centimeters shaded to the left, that you're 92% likely to get this run or this pass or whatever it is. And so you've got to be cognizant of all of your tendencies. You can't overthink it either, because if you've got a tendency and that tendency is working, there's some merit to it as well. But tremendous defensive coach, tremendous head coach. I mean, the guy's won the Big 12. He's, won 4 straight against the University of Texas. So I got a ton of respect for him.
Tom, this program the last 4 or 5 years has had a really hard time with the follow-through after a big win. And 24-hour rule, I get it, but the reality is these guys are getting pats on the backs from family, friends, classmates. I mean, how do you realistically, here in the real world with Twitter, get them to truly forget it and move on?
That was we spent a 30-minute team meeting yesterday, and our coaches were also given kind of a curriculum, if you will, for their position meetings on a more unit-based level. Was that the only people whose opinions should matter when it comes to the game of football are the people in that team meeting room, the players and the coaches, your teammates and your coaches, and basically pleading with them, pleading with the leaders to make sure that some of these guys, to school the young guys up, that, and it was the same after we only beat Tulsa by 7 points. It was fairly the same meeting, that in this family, you can be bombarded with outside messages that really have no impact on our preparation for TCU. So it was a big point of emphasis throughout the day yesterday, was making sure that the opinions of the people in that locker room and in those coaches' offices are the only ones that we worry about.
And then as a follow-up, I know the recruiting perception is that, A&M's coming on strong and you got to worry about OU and all that. But TCU has long been known as a guy who, when he gives you a commitment, that's a big red flag that, hey, this kid's talented, look at this kid. Is TCU a team that is really high on your list of, hey, you guys got to turn this tide for all the other reasons that are talked about with these other schools for you to get back going again?
Yeah, I mean, simply because they're an in-state school in our conference that we recruit against. So, yeah, there's a lot of added benefit to winning this football game. But, the biggest one is that, we get an opportunity to go 1-0 in the Big 12.
Hey, Coach. I know you've talked about this before, but you guys haven't had a 3-game win streak at this program since 2014, have an opportunity to tie that. I know you don't believe in momentum, but is there a tangible way to build off of the success that you guys had against USC and continue that going forward?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I just choose to use a different word. I mean, it's energy, it's lessons learned, it's validation. It's, there's a lot of things that come from winning a game like that that are positive for your program and positive for the psychology of your players because, in the last, you rattled off the statistic on Thursday, right? The average, the losses since we've been here have been, 6 points or 5 points or something like that. And so we've been so close for so long that to finally break through the close barrier and actually finish gives us energy and gives us some validation of the fact that the way that we do things will and can lead to success.
Tom, kind of piggybacking on the last 2 questions, but how encouraged have you been by the response of this team since the Maryland game, the way they have come on in the last 2 games, and when obviously that was kind of another blow to them, and second of all, just a quick follow-up, do you at all even have to mention the last 4 games against TCU to these guys, or is that so ingrained that you think that that's almost a given?
Neither. I really think, there is because of where we're at culturally and with the leadership on this team, that moving past the first game was actually not as difficult as probably many people think. It really wasn't. I think our guys were ready to learn and move on, just like we're ready to learn and move on from a win this week. And the motivation of the previous 4, it's really, it's inconsequential. I don't think that there's a guy on this team that, they care about this year, and they care about this week, and they care about going 1-0 this week, and that's all the motivation they need, really.
Tom, I was curious what your thought process is on your 2 freshman quarterbacks now that non-conference is over and the redshirt rule, and do you kind of wish you'd gotten Shane in just to make sure he's not rusty if something happened the same?
No, Shane's he's awesome. That guy will be ready. There's no doubt in my mind. He will not be rusty. He's healthy. He's bouncing around, coaching the heck out of Sam on the sideline, talking to Coach Beck and myself on the headset, even during series or right after series, on what he saw. So he is fully engaged, and the opportunity to get him in, when you're running the clock out, I don't think that's, you've spent 70 some odd snaps, with one quarterback meshing with the same running back and the same center, so that it probably wasn't the ideal time to do that. We only subbed a couple guys out just to save some legs on the wide receivers, and but to the best of my recollection, we had the entire starting offensive line in. We had the starting, or we put Reese Lato in, for Andrew, but kept Cade in 12 personnel. So And then the freshman quarterbacks, I think, they're going to be ready. They both travel with us. Right now, Casey runs the scout team, and Cameron's the third guy. There's no doubt in my mind that at some point, it's not. There would be no surprise by anybody that watches those guys go about their business day in and day out and sees how talented they are, that nobody would be surprised if those guys are the starting quarterback at Texas at some point. Now, when that is, I don't know, but, they're both going to be ready. I don't think you're going to, you got 4 games. So when you have a quality backup like Shane, you're not going to, waste a game or two, on a guy. And it's not like we really had any mop-up duty, so to speak, the last couple weeks. So in a perfect world, you'd redshirt them both and still play them in 4 games if you have the opportunity. But, they have done nothing but be very, very, they've been nothing but a pleasant experience to work with. It's really, really fun to see the future of that position in those two young guys.
Coach, you've talked about your team competing for Big 12 titles for a few times now. Why do you think your team can compete this year?
Well, I think our best is good enough to win. I think, but we got to play our best. There are teams out there. We're not there yet, where they can play their C-plus game and still win versus a lot of opponents. We're not there. We need to play our best every week to win, especially now that we're starting conference. We're starting in a conference where we, play everybody. We're one of only, I think, 2 teams in the country to play back-to-back years, play 11 Power 5 opponents. So we know what our schedule's like. We know who we can be. That was certainly validated a little bit on Saturday night. But we've got to be that team each and every week, which is difficult, but we also know that it's possible now too, and we feel like our best is good enough to compete with anybody.
How much does the completion percentage, Sam, I think it was 45%, how much does that matter versus all the plays he made?
Not in that game. We knew. I mean, we prepared our team from Tuesday's practice. We were not going to have a very high completion percentage because we knew we were going to keep throwing the ball down the field versus man-to-man coverage. And when we hit it, it was going to be big, and we knew we weren't going to hit them all. We didn't even bat an eye, because that was exactly, it was almost to a T how we thought the game plan was going to play out. Fairly low completion percentage. He threw, I think, 2 touchdowns, ran for another one. We were going to need him in the run game because of the overloaded boxes that we were seeing. But we knew that taking shots down the field is not very high percentage, but when you do, they're big plays.
Tom, first, is there an update at all on John Burt?
John's going to practice, yeah. So I've got on my thing, participate in drills as tolerated. So we'll see how he feels tomorrow after going through drills.
And secondly, now that you and Todd have had a chance to review the film, was there anyone or anything that stood out to you about your guys' run defense in the USC game?
We got great play from our 2 inside linebackers. And usually when you're getting great play from those 2 guys, it means that the 3 guys in front of them are playing really well too. So I think we did a good job of mixing the blitzes and stunts. And our players lit their hair on fire and just went and, created havoc, behind the line of scrimmage. And that's always a key component to slowing down run game.
Tom, from a recruiting standpoint, you've had some time now to digest what was a pretty big recruiting weekend. How do you think everybody in the organization handled it? And then also, how do you and your staff handle kind of the ebbs and flows of a recruiting cycle when, from the outside, the perception is that things are either really, really bad or they're going really, really well?
We don't worry about things going really, really bad or really, really well in September. We'll worry about it in December, and in terms of the signing day, we're on track. We're on pace with a lot of guys that we feel like we need to be. And then I do have to, thank, Derek Chang and his staff. I mean, that is hard. When you have official visits, you had 40 some odd guys, offered or offerable type guys that were here unofficially, and your coaches, aren't around very much. And, again, like I said, there's some really positive things to having official visits on a game day weekend. Our recruits got to see our atmosphere, which was unbelievable. Got to see a win against a top 25 opponent, and got to experience Austin. Now, do we wish that we would have had some more quality personal time with them, whether it be at a dinner or lunch or whatever? Certainly, but all the official visitors were at my house Sunday for breakfast, and had individual meetings with me, and so we felt like it went really well. But it couldn't have. It would have been impossible without Derek Chang and his staff and what they were able to do in absence a lot of times of our coaches who were busy trying to win a football game.
Hey, Coach, you've talked a lot about wanting a team that's mentally tough, right? And you guys fall behind 14-3. There's once, and then you guys go come back. I think Brandon Jones gets beat, but then he makes a stop on 4th down that saves a touchdown. Can you just talk about that bounce back, what you're seeing on the sidelines, and if you're feeling like if things start going bad, this team is mentally strong enough to come back?
Much more than we ever have been. We're certainly not a finished product. We've got to continue to enhance that and improve it, but it's confidence, and it's not arrogance, it's not cockiness, it's confident that I trained so hard and am trained so well throughout the course of the week that when one bad thing or two bad things happens to me throughout the course of the game, that's okay. That's football. And, I have trained, and my teammates have trained so hard that we'll be able to go 1-0 on the next play and the next one and the next one. And you stack up more 1-0s versus 0-1s, and you're going to come out on the good side of the ledger for the most part. And so I think we're in a lot better place with the confidence of our training individually, and then the confidence that each individual has in how his brother and his teammate has trained.
Tom, when you had time to digest Sam's numbers, the 45% completion rate, the 17 carries, were there some check downs in there that he could have taken that maybe he needs to take going forward? And how's Deli Adeoye progressing, and what jumps out about TCU on film?
Yes, there were some check downs and probably a couple misreads that, again, we went into the game, and because of the multiplicity of coverages that they had, it wasn't, hey, dissect every coverage and tell me exactly what it is. It was a lot more progression-based in terms of what we asked him to do, and I thought for the most part he did a great job. A couple of those scrambles probably could have been check downs, but he's pretty dang good with the ball in his hands. Deli's doing great. Is full speed in practice and should get a ton of reps on special teams again this week, and then be ready to go should we need him, as the backup inside linebacker right now. And TCU, the thing that stands out is just their speed, as we've talked about. They've got speed everywhere on all sides of the ball.
On Malcolm, how was he playing before this injury? How would you rate how he was doing?
Oh, good. I mean, he's playing really good. One of our more productive players on defense.
Okay. And I wanted to piggyback on what Amar was asking. I've asked you a lot about winning and teaching these guys how to win. but it's the idea of them believing in themselves first. And the goal line stand seems like a huge pivotal moment because you did trust them to do their thing. You know, how do you quantify or measure that they get it? That, hey, this coaching staff does believe in us?
That's a great question. And we talked about it yesterday in the team meeting, that like let's not let that sequence go by without analyzing that. That was a defensive coordinator whose job depends on, you know, my and other people's evaluation of him, walked up and said, "Coach, we got this. We got this. We'll stop them." And I made sure that our defense knew that's how that sequence went in that team meeting, that he looked me in the eye and said, "Put the ball on the one and let them go for it." And it was neat to kind of just see the looks in their eyes when, you know, they realized that this coaching staff and myself has a tremendous amount of belief in them. And you know, the light bulb went off. Now, again, it's not to say that it's some great epiphany that's going to carry us into the wild blue yonder, but it was just another step in the build of our program in terms of, you know, proving again that we believe in them and that we trust them and they can trust us.
Real quickly, when Todd was, I saw you and Todd were together, it looked like no hesitation on their part. Was there any part of you that was like, I don't know?
Nope.
Is it because of his belief? Is it the way he was, let's do it?
It was because my belief in him and his players and our defense.
You see this sprint on the side?
No. I don't know that I want to see him sprint down the sideline.
Back middle, Roger?
Tom, Jerrod Heard's had an interesting career path. I mean, some epic games as quarterback, beats OU, featured pass catcher to a guy that still seems to have a great attitude. What do you guys see and get out of Jerrod on a daily basis still?
Oh, everything he's got. He bleeds burnt orange and white. He loves this university. He loves his team. He loves his teammates. Loves his coaches. And he will do anything and everything as long as we win. That's all that matters to Jerrod is his team winning. And I can't say enough about a guy and to have an attitude like that. You know, he's got talent, certainly. You know, we've you know, he's in probably the deepest position meeting room on our team in terms of the quality of depth that we have there. But he has taken his role, whatever that role may be, each and every week, and he has taken it and ran with it, no pun intended. But you know, he's happy to do whatever his team needs him to do to help win.
Back middle, Jeff?
Tom, you know, you said last year during the signing day in December and then again in February, you feel like you and your staff recruited the right kind of guys, not just great players, but the right kind of guys. In terms of the intangibles and stuff like that, is that the kind of stuff that shows up? Because it looks like whether it's been Caden or BJ or Keontae, it doesn't look like those guys have flinched at all or been timid. They've been pretty much ready to go from the time they stepped on the field. Just your thoughts on how they've handled everything so far through 3 games.
Again, you know, Rick Neuheisel says it on his show on Sirius or what is it, 84 or something like that. You know, that it's not the players that you don't get that get you beat. It's the ones that you do get that you've misevaluated or not what you thought they were. And so we spend an inordinate amount of time on the evaluation of the intangibles. You know, we want to know the character of the kid. We want to know his toughness, his work ethic, his selflessness, and these guys have not disappointed. I mean, these guys they're all team players. They all, you know, which is hard. As highly regarded of recruits as some of these guys were, to come in and take, you know, backup roles, if you will, or kind of spot roles or special teams or whatever. They have all done it without blinking an eye, without complaint, and it's been really, really fun to see. And they're they're excited about 2019 class because they know that that class is going to be the one, you know, that kind of helps them when they're juniors and seniors, you know, get to where they need to be too. So tremendous amount of pride in that class. They've got a pride in winning. They've got a pride in the display of their talent, certainly, like you said, with the young ones that are playing. And yeah, they were those that are playing were certainly college ready and have not flinched.
Yeah, speaking of new eyes, I was listening on 84 on the way down from Dallas, and he said he thought he saw a lot more athletes in the TCU Ohio State game than in Texas Southern Cal game. I was curious what you thought about that, and is the targeting calls, are they just going too far?
Yeah, I don't know about more. I didn't quantify. There were some athletes, right? There were right. There were some athletes on both in both games. So I don't know that certainly both those teams that played in Dallas have a lot of athletes, but I saw a bunch of really athletic dudes on both sides of the ball running around in this game too. So to quantify whether more or less, I don't know. And targeting, going too far, I don't know. I think I've said it ad nauseum. You know, there needs to be. We measure intent in a lot of fouls in a lot of different sports, and I think there has to be a way to measure intent of this. Do we want to keep our kids safe? Absolutely. And if a kid does make contact illegally with some part of, you know, above the shoulder area illegally, then that should be a foul. But to eject a kid that's not trying to hurt anybody, that's in the split-second decisions that are being made, I don't know that I agree with that, but I do know that anything and everything that we can do in the name of player safety and making this game safer, I am all for. But I do think there needs to be a way to measure intent on that, and as to whether we eject a young man or not.
Coach, you talked about TCU's speed and how fast they are everywhere. How do you beat a team like that, and do you like your chances going against a team like that?
I do, because I think we can run too. I think our defense, we've got a lot of speed on defense. I think offensively, going side to side is probably not, there's going to be times and places for it, but I think in the run game you got to go vertically a little bit. You got to try to push some of these athletes off the ball a little bit and find creases, and when they try to use their athleticism to avoid blocks, you've got to make sure that your running game is kind of in sync with that. And but I think those are the two things. I think we got to keep them in front of us on defense. I can't let them break free, because it's going to be hard to chase them down. And then offensively, I think you got to stick with the vertical run game as much as you can. Thank you.